Me okay? Because I got a light behind me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition, a solo edition today, but Dale and Jimmy can't make it, of In the Umpires Clubhouse. We've got a rock and roll session for you today. As most of you know, I am a huge music fan. That's my first love. Don't tell anybody. We've got a guest today who was in a pretty big band when they came out in 81, something in the 80s. The band is New England. They were coming into the Boston area, like the Boston Sound, things like that. So they had a few big hits. We've got their drummer today, Hirsch Gardner. So Hirsch, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Bob. It's great to be here. Nice to see you. Nice to finally meet you, man.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too, buddy. Hirsch, tell us how you guys toured with Kiss. We were talking before we went on. Journey, Foghat. You toured with a lot of great bands, and when you toured with them, did you guys learn a lot? As a young up and coming band, did you learn from like Kiss and Journey and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. It was, it was an honor to be, first of all, it was an honor to get a record deal at that point in time. That was, that's kind of like what we all lived for and spent, many, many years honing our craft and finally getting signed. And we were signed to uh, Bill O'Coin, who was our manager. Bill was also the manager of Kiss, Billy Idol, Billy Squire. So, initially we decided, okay, well, let's do a record, which we did. And then we went on the road, and Bill just got us, the tour with Kiss on the Dynasty tour, which was amazing. And pretty much every night after my set, I would stand up on the left side of the stage and I would watch the band play and just keep an eye on Peter Criss and keep an eye on the band, listen to their tunes. So that was one area that was a great learning process, but also playing with bands like Rush
Oh
and being
yeah.
on stage preceding Neil Peart, playing with Cheap Trick with the great songs that those guys had. Yeah, it was every night it was something new to learn about being that rock star and performing on stage, and giving something back to the audience was the most important thing that you could do, and that's how you won them over.
Barry Goudreau told me one time, he said he realized he made it when the first album came out and there was teenage girls coming to his door asking for his autograph. You
Yeah,
know?
I think the
I
same
mean,
thing's pretty much happened to all of us. So it's
yeah,
yeah, very
exactly.
very hit the nail on
Exactly.
the head, man.
You mentioned Neil Peart. He's 1A in my all-time favorite drummers. Bonzo's number one. I mean, there's just nobody in my mind. Bonzo is it. But there were two different kind of drummers. Neil was a tactician, the professor, and Bonzo just beat the hell out of his drum kit. But he got the
Yep,
sound.
yep.
Who did you pattern yourself after? Who were your idols? That
But
you,
well, that's funny. That's a question that a lot of people ask me. When I was really young, I was into jazz. So
oh,
Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa,
yep.
yeah, Ed Shaughnessy with Johnny Carson's band, Doc Severinsen. Those are the guys that I started off looking up to. But as time progressed and I started to develop my own style, all these great rock drummers that you name have total respect from me, but I never really patterned myself after anyone in particular. But I guess I'm more of a Bonham type of drummer than I am a Neil Peart drummer because, like you said, Neil's got an amazing technician, and I love him for that, and still marvel over the stuff that he played. But I guess I'm more of a basher, and and hey, I'm still doing it. There's my
Love it. I love it.
my,
Making
my a
making
little
noise for the
little
neighbors, right?
a little quickie of my home studio. But um yeah, that's I'd never really had like one drummer that I wanted to copy. I was always trying to develop my own style, and with the band New England, as innovative as we were, that allowed me to be have that freedom within our song context to develop drum parts that I thought were cool for the song. It's always
Right,
all
right.
about it's always all about the song, not the
Oh,
drummer.
absolutely. Absolutely. You can tell good drummers and great bass players if they're in sync. They don't have to do anything. They just know Franny and Sibby were like that. They knew because they've been
Oh
playing
yeah.
together for years. They played in the combat zone, you know. And Franny's told me stories about you know, the Hell's Angels used to get all hyped up on whatever and start throwing shit at the band, and they had the wire nets around, or wire around the cage. Rock and
Those,
roll, man. You got
yeah,
to pay your dues.
those were the days in Boston. The Combat Zone was you know, like a really typical gig that everybody played.
Yeah,
So it was great.
absolutely. You play
Yeah.
you play did you play the Rat? Did you guys play at the Rat?
As a matter of fact, I played at the Rat with several bands even before New England
Ah.
and after New England. But when we were on tour, Jimmy Harold was a really dear friend of mine. Who's the owner of the Rat. And we came off tour, and I was hanging out at the Rat, just watching, you know, some band. I mean, I'd be out on the town every night, just about. And and Jimmy and I were talking, and he's going, "Hey, man, why don't you guys come and play the club?" And I said, "Oh, Jimmy, we're too big, man. It's just like not big in stature, but just like the amplifiers, you know, and the stage thing that we had." So I talked to the guys in the band, and we actually played the Rat on an unannounced gig as New England.
Wow. God.
And when I pulled up to the club, there was a everybody obviously knew about it in Boston because there was a line all the way down the street. The place has never seen that many people in it, but the Rat was classic, man. Really classic nightclub.
Yeah, it's amazing how the radios, you know, the stuff gets leaked, and all of a sudden you got 8 million people wanting to get in this little, what, 300 seat club or whatever it held. You know,
Yeah,
where are you going to
yeah,
put them? You know, but you know, that's the beauty of music. To me, music is the key to life. You know, it can take you in so many different ways. It can bring you up, it can bring you down. I'm like you, I love jazz. Jazz at night, it calms me down, and you know, I relax, you know. And
right.
you know, you mentioned Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich. Those guys could play. Those
Oh
guys
yeah,
could freaking play. And I can't think, the guy for the Dave Brubeck Quartet, when he did Take Five, I can't think of the drummer's name.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, that was
Tom Morello. Yeah,
Joe
Tom
Morello.
Joe Morello. Yeah, and
Yep,
if you watch the video, he's just playing the same beat over and over, and that, as you know, is hard to do. Playing the same
yep,
rhythm, you know.
yep.
It just goes to show you the musicianship in jazz and in rock and roll. You know, it kind of blows your mind at how good these guys are and what you guys can do. To us mortal humans who would give our eye teeth to do what you do, you know, it amazes me. And you know, like as you know, I've been friends with Fran for years, and he's told me so many stories. It's just a pleasure to get to talk to musicians on their level, you know, and not the quite technical aspects, but you know, talking about drummers and your favorite drummers and who you pattern yourself after. That stuff is awesome, and I appreciate you coming on and talking about this.
Oh, cool. Yeah, glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Are you New England planning to tour no, not play anywhere in the near future, or what's going on with that? Are you guys are still a band, right?
Well, we're still a band. So in '83 we broke up, and then we didn't really play together. We stayed in touch, but we didn't play together till the early 2000s. And then an opportunity came up where there was a benefit concert, and a friend of mine asked me if New England would be interested in playing, and I said, "Well, yeah, hey, who knows? Let me call the guys." So I called the guys, and you know, we all lived apart. Jimmy and Gary were living in L.A., and John and I were still living here in Boston. And so I called the guys. I said, "Listen, you know, they want us to play. It'd be a good opportunity. I got a little rehearsal studio that we can jam at for a week, so we could learn, you know, relearn after 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 25 years the songs." So the guys flew into Boston, and went down to this recording rehearsal studio. And I'll tell you what, I counted the first song, and I think it was like "Alone Tonight," which is one of our songs off the first album. And we just played the song straight through for like 4 minutes. And we just all looked at each other at the end of the song. It's like, holy shit, this was amazing. It sounded great.
Well, have you heard
So,
go ahead.
so since that, you know, early mid 2000s gig, we decided, well, let's get together once a year or so, and we'll do um, a bunch of gigs in the Boston area. We had a gig in Los Angeles that we would do, and then we played Japan. And the band is still huge over there. So for many, many years, up until maybe about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we would play regularly once a year. Now, John moved out of the area. He's down South Carolina. Jimmy's now living in Chicago, and Gary's all now living in Florida. So so the idea of getting together nowadays is really difficult. Now, it's, I'll be honest with you, it's a financial situation. It
Well,
costs a lot of money
absolutely.
to put a band on,
Absolutely.
and the opportunities are few and far between. So we have not planned anything recently, and I've been busy doing my own thing. I'm putting out my third solo album is going to be released on Deco Entertainment. So if you all want to look it up, it's Dekko. It's a great label. There's some classic artists on that label, and so that's kind of what I'm embroiled in right now, which is kind of like why I fell asleep all day, because I've been rehearsing and recording all week. So it yeah,
Yeah,
not a whole
yeah,
lot,
yeah, I know.
not a whole lot of time to sleep. So
You know,
that's basically what's going on. So New England really at this point does not have anything planned, because we're all doing our own projects at this
right,
point.
right.
So
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, they've talked to bands like people want to get Triumph together again. And they're getting up there too. And Gilmore's got his recording studio in Toronto, Ironworks, and Mike Levine's doing his own thing, and Rick, he's a great guitarist. And
yep.
they all have said it's just a financial, people don't understand, just to get the band together for one gig is a financial burden. It's a lot of money. They don't
Oh, it
understand.
is.
They think, oh, you just get together and play. No, you got to rehearsal studios. You got to truck your equipment in. You got to pay all these people, your roadies. It's a lot of work and a lot of money, you
Yep.
know.
Sure
And
is.
it's not like you can just plug in and play. It's not that simple. It's funny you mentioned you guys getting together and playing again and just looking at each other like we still got it, as a band. They asked John Paul Jones when he got together with the new Yardbirds. They had this little basement in London that they were playing in, and Bonzo in a basement. He probably blew the roof off. They
Yeah.
looked at each other. They played one song. And they just looked at each other and they knew. It's
Yeah.
just that instinct. And look, they probably one of the greatest hard rock band ever. But what do you think the difference is now when you guys got signed? I know this is a loaded question to today's music, and a lot of today's music, no, it's not music.
Yeah.
Where the guy who's playing the instruments? No, that's not a band. Come on, where's the drummer? Where's the guitar player? You know, uh,
Right.
what do you think the difference is between when you guys got signed and the way it is now in the music business?
Well, it's interesting because you bring up a good point. There are so many different um, styles of music that are out there, and some of those styles you can say some of the some of the comments that you just made, yeah, they definitely apply to certain bands. Like, who's the guitar player? I mean, is it a real guitar or is it a fake guitar? What's going on? But the bands that I'm following now are bands like Pretty Maids out of Europe, and Ronnie Atkins. He's a lead singer who used to be with the Pretty Maids, but he's on a solo record now. Um, People like Chris Laney, he's in Sweden. All of these bands that are still playing melodic hard rock, those guys are all still for real. For me, those guys are just like we were 25, 35, 45 years ago. They're still setting up their amps, setting up their drums, playing live in the studio, doing real music. So those are the guys that I'm following right now. I do understand that there's a lot of different genres of music out there. Some of them don't require uh a full band, because a lot of these guys are just like producers that are also artists, and they're just doing all of their own music just on the computer, and that's fine. I mean, some of it's phenomenal. um, my technique in recording here in my studio encompasses all of that. I have real live guitar players and keyboard players, but I also do record a lot of electronic music into my computer, and then I'm able to manipulate it because I'm recording MIDI
Right.
notes. Some folks might not know what that is, but so if I play a C chord and I play C, E, G, those are the three notes in the chord. But let's say I hit the F note instead. I mean, I can just go into the computer, grab that note, move it down a step, and that's now a C chord. So there is still that aspect uh, of production that I utilize because I think it's great. Some of that stuff is phenomenal, but there's nothing better than sitting there with your guitar player. I mean, my guy is Joe Filoni. He's a good dear friend of mine. Joe and I have been playing together for years. He was just here in the studio yesterday, and hey Joe, yeah, let's just do that solo again, man. I heard a couple of notes in there that I think you could probably do better. He just rips it off, and okay, that was that. That's perfect. So that's the style of music that I still love to record and do record. But you're right, there are those genres of music out there that don't require a whole band, just like one guy who plays a little bit of everything and can manipulate all the music in MIDI, and that's fine. That's fine. I'll listen to some of that and go, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, but it's not my style, It's,
Right, it's not my
to each
style
his
either,
own. To each his
but if
own.
I'm hearing something on that style of music that I might be able to steal and put in my music, hey.
Oh, a musician stealing no. A musician who says they didn't steal anything is lying. Come on. Trampled Underfoot. John Paul Jones said he got the riff from Superstition by Stevie Wonder. Because he was
Oh,
playing.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
he was playing it on his clavinet, and it's genius, really, the way the intro, and it happens, as it happens in a lot of songs. You pick a little bit here and there out of different songs where you go, I heard that from somewhere else.
Yeah. If
Um,
anybody's saying that, like you said, if anybody's saying that they don't steal or borrow or plagiarize from some other, musician or band, that's a lie. So
you know, um, I was doing my research, and to me, Explorer Suite. The first time I heard that, I thought, this is a prog rock song. These guys are like Yes Light. That's what it was to me. You guys
mm,
are a rock band, but you're also a prog rock band, especially with Explorer Suite, because that, had the keyboards in it, and it's a great song. It really,
yeah.
and it sounds better in headphones. I tell people, if you're going to listen to music, put the cans on and listen. You're going to hear so much more than you will over the radio or a regular stereo.
Yeah, that song continues to blow people away. I've got a couple of little stories about that song. So, um, music lives on forever, right?
Right.
We all know the artist Travis Scott,
Yep.
huge, huge hip hop artist, just like millions and millions of hits on the radio. Well, Travis Scott contacted us, and he just released his latest album. It was probably about a year ago now, and there's a song on the album that I urge everybody to go listen to. It's called Sirens, and it's on Travis Scott's latest album. And what they did, now that you've mentioned Explorer Suite, is they've taken our whole intro, which is the a cappella version, which goes like, every night I look up in the sky and the stars are all there. Boy, you get to hear me sing today too.
We
Well,
pay extra
Travis
for
Scott
that.
actually sampled that whole intro and put it on the beginning of his latest hit song, which is called Sirens, and that's out on the airwaves right now. So, 40, 50 years later, our music is still being heard by a completely different group of folks that are listening to music, which I thought was really, really cool.
My nephew is 21, and he's graduating college in December. He wants to be a baseball broadcaster, and he's interning for the Reno Aces this summer. And he and his girlfriend, they like hip hop and rap and all that. And I'm slowly turning him. He likes Led Zeppelin now. That's my boy.
Mm,
So
right.
and he's learning that Uncle Bob has cool music. Yeah, thank you. Took him a long time, but he's finally realizing this guy knows what he's talking about. So, but it gives me a thrill, and I'm sure it does you, to like with Explorer Suite, a whole new generation of people is hearing your music for the first time. And that,
Yeah.
that must be so gratifying.
It's pretty cool, and it's funny when I mention that to some people, they go, "What? Really? A chorus suite? Travis Scott? No way!" I said, "Yeah, go listen to the song, man. It's pretty cool." So,
How was that a hard song to come up with and play and get it right? Because there's so many moving parts to that song. You know, a lot of keyboards and your drum fills and everything. Was that a hard song to record? I'm sure that took a little while to record that.
can I be honest? No, it wasn't hard. I mean,
Really?
it was all New England. I mean, we just feel, um, the ideas. We were the four of us were so connected that John's intro guitar, I'm sorry, actually there's no guitar at all on that song. John played piano on the song, and he's just like dun 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 dun, and that's the piano part. And for me, I hear a little space, and I'll put in that little drum fill, and then Jimmy will come up with like these little keyboard flourishes, and of course Gary's bass parts are so melodic, and just to build on the whole melodic idea of the song. But and even live, people are still astounded when we pull that song off live with just the four of us, because it sounds like there's like 50 people playing. And the vocal harmonies, we got three lead vocalists in the band, so the vocal harmonies are all spot on. We would spend hours just doing vocal rehearsals, and each one of us has our own character in our voice.
Right.
And essentially what you've got to do when you're singing that type of a tight three-part harmony is you have to lose your character and listen to the character of the person who's actually the lead vocalist and copy his character. And we were able to do that so well that when you hear the harmonies, even especially live, they're just spot on. And every time we play that song live, it's always the big hit of the night, because people are just astounded that we can pull it off. So for us, it was not really hard, but and I think that's great. People listening to it go, that must be really, really complicated to do that. Nah, it worked really well. We just were able to pull it off, and it's a testament to the musicianship of the band, I think.
Bingo. You guys were a tight unit. You were a tight band. You guys had it. You had the feel. There's some bands that it seems like they just go through the motions. I've seen Foreigner live several times. To be honest with you, they suck live. They're
Oh,
boring.
wow.
Yeah, I did not enjoy them. And now Mick Jones doesn't even tour with them anymore because he's not doing well physically.
Yeah.
So it's fake Foreigner, and that's where I kind of draw the line. No, 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 no. Sorry. No. None of the original members are there. Why? That just bothers me. I don't know. Maybe I'm
I
just
think yeah, I think there's a lot of bands that are getting really, really old. That like Kiss has got a lot of Kiss impersonator bands that are out there, and they'll probably hire them all and put them on the road, and Kiss will take a piece of the money, and hey, God bless them if they can do it.
so we're gonna see a fake New England come on the road.
I don't think so.
Well, there could be a fake New England with Hirsch playing the drums. That would be cool.
Oh,
I'd for that. Tell me about John Butcher. How'd you get hooked up with him?
oh man, John and I've known each other since the early days in Boston music in the '70s. He was in a band, Johanna Wild. They were playing at places like the Rat and the Bunratties and Cadies, and which is kind of where I first saw Aerosmith play. But so John and I have been buddies since way, way back, and in the past 5 or 6 years, he still got the John Butcher Axis that plays out every once in a while. And I was actually doing a solo thing with my guitar player Joe Filoni, so I would just go up with just the two of us, and I'd play rhythm guitar on acoustic, and Joe would play guitar. So we did a bunch of opening slots for Butcher, and we've just always kept in touch. And like I said, a year ago, we decided to co-write a song and put that out, and was a video of it. And it's but we've got a really good long history. It's amazing the musicians in Boston. You mentioned Franny and Barry from the group Boston, and Sibby. We all know each other.
Yeah.
The guys in the Jay Giles band. I mean, Peter Wolf and I are good friends, and everybody in Boston just kind of like knows each other. It's not a huge, huge city, and the music scene we're all very neighborly, so to speak. So yeah, John and I've been buddies for a long time.
Well, Franny mentioned you years ago. We were talking about bands. We were out to dinner one night, and he goes, "Yeah, Hirsch and I are tight. We're buddies. We've known each other forever," and that stuck in my mind. And
Yeah.
here we are in 2024, and yeah, Fran is still. If you ever met Fran on the street, you wouldn't know what he did because he's not one of these beating his chest. He's Franny, and he's always
Yep.
been Fran to me.
Yep.
He's one of the. Brad Delp was the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Brad was a
Correct.
saint. And the guy could sing the phone book and I'd buy it. You know what I mean? He was that good.
Yeah.
There's polls that rank him up there with Freddie Mercury, and I kind of agree with that because Brad had the vocal range. I don't know if it was high as Freddie, but Freddie Mercury could sing anything too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
Brad was a wonderful human being, and that's before anybody talks about how great he was as a vocalist, probably one of the greatest. They always just talk about his personality and how wonderful he was. And when I would bump into Brad, just anywhere around town or at some gig, the first thing out of his mouth, Hirsch, how are you doing? What are you up to these days? It's just like it was never about him. He always made it about you and made you feel comfortable. And I just thought that was such a great characteristic that he had, and just made you feel real comfortable around him. And most people say the same thing.
It's sad that Fran's told me several times what could have been, and we don't want to get into that because this isn't their gig, but it's sad to think, you got honestly, I thought you guys should have been bigger than you were. I don't know. Was it lack of your label promoting you, or what was the reasoning behind it? Do you have any idea? Or
Oh yeah, I mean and it's a great question. There were many things that were going on at that period in time. We did not get the label support, and the label just kind of messed everything up. Infinity Records, they pulled us off the road when Don't Ever Want to Lose You was just hitting the top 40 in the Billboard charts, when they should have just at that point they should have put the pedal to the metal and
absolutely.
driven that song to #1, which is where it should have been. It was a great song, and then we had so many other songs on that record that would have followed up, that would have just taken the band to the top of the heap. So, but also, you got to remember in 1980, 1981, Elvis Costello started hitting the charts. Punk was taken over. Album-oriented rock, AOR music, was sort of on the wane, and a lot of bands like New England, lost their foothold because punk was taken over. And the Clash, Elvis Costello, Steve Baders, all these guys in these punk bands were hitting the charts and pushing bands like New England off the charts, and so that ended up being the demise. I mean, we carried on till 82 or 83, and then Jimmy Gary and I put a band together with Vinnie Vincent, who eventually joined Kiss. It was called Warrior. And that band was getting a lot of notoriety, but once again, all these punk bands were taking over, so the appetite for music like ours was dwindling, and we couldn't get a contract, and that sort of ended things. At that point, I just went on to start producing bands and became a fairly well-known producer, at least in this area. Won a bunch of awards for my productions. Boston Music Awards awarded me the producer of the year. The Boston Phoenix, same thing. So that's kind of what I did after the fall of AOR music and the advent of punk. So I just started producing bands, and I was able to make a living doing that, and did fairly well at it. So,
did you learn a lot at the Berkeley School of producing, or was it just mostly music for you playing? Did you learn how to produce there, or was that just trial and error?
No, well, the production thing, I think, was more, I mean, I was blessed, and I was able to work with producers like Mike Stone on our first album. Mike produced Queen. What a better education than standing behind Mike and say, "Hey, Mike, what are you doing now? I'm wondering how are you recording those vocals, man?" It's just like, Hirsch, go away, leave me alone. I'm producing your album. So I did 2 albums with Mike, and then the third album was with Todd Rundgren. So it doesn't get any better than that. And I'd always been recording. I was recording music when I was in Toronto as a young, 16-year-old, rock and roller playing in Yorkville Village and all that. So recording was always something that I loved to do, and I just carried on doing it and learned more and more and more. But Berklee, I didn't realize how much I learned at 4 years at Berklee until way later on in my career, when I started telling people, hey man, that F sharp and that chord is part of a Lydian mode, and you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm hearing myself talking, and going, wow, I guess I did learn something at that school. But yeah, not so much for the production at Berklee, but just just learning about music in general, musicality, putting song arrangements together, and learning harmony and things like that. So that's Berklee was a great experience. I met a lot of really cool people at Berklee at that point.
That's great. If you listen to songs like in the headphones, you can get a musical education just by hearing different songs. Off the top of my head, anything by Led Zeppelin. You put the headphones on, you can hear Jimmy's 15 guitars that he's using, and he's
Yeah,
playing, Bonzo's playing rhythm drums to Jimmy's rhythm guitar, which blows me away every time. A lot of bands like you guys that came up in that genre, they did stuff that people are still doing today,
sure.
and people say, oh, rock and roll is dead. No, it's not. It's not going anywhere. I don't care what anybody says. It's always going to be around, because some of the greatest music we've ever heard came from the 60s and the 70s, all the way from the
Yep.
British invasion. And it's gratifying to know that it's not going anywhere,
Yeah, I don't think so. It's too big. There's too many young bands that are out there just starting up, even today. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to have some longevity before it goes away. Who knows?
Hirsch, how did you guys come up with New England? I've read a story about it, but I'm gonna let you tell it.
Well, it has nothing to do with the area that we live in. Everybody was like, oh, they're copying Boston.
Yeah.
Boston was out, I think, in '77, and we were out in '79. So, we got accused of that, and then it was Kansas. We were huge fans of the early English prog bands like Yes, King Crimson, 10cc,
Yep.
all of those guys, Electric Light Orchestra, Jeff Lynne, and people like that. So we were in '77 when we were actually a club band before that. We were called Target and Jack. I mean, we had a couple of different names of bands. So we actually broke up the club band. And when we got back together in '77, I had a rehearsal studio at my home down in Braintree, Massachusetts, and we rehearsed there 6, 7 days a week, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And we said back then, we're not going to play any gigs at all. We're not going to sell any more booze. We're going to sell music. And the next gig that we do is going to be at Madison Square Garden. So because our influences were the aforementioned bands that I was talking about, we wanted to develop a new English style of music as an American band.
Ah,
And that's how the name New England came about. It had nothing to do with Boston or Kansas or any of those guys. It was basically describing the music style that we were emulating at that time. So New England is all about a new English style of music. And when you mention songs like Explorer Suite, yeah, that's kind of a proggy type of Queen
absolutely.
style
Absolutely.
arrangement. But then again, we also had songs like Don't Ever Want to Lose You, which were
Yep.
just straight ahead freaking, rock and roll with a big power chord intro,
Yep.
huge background vocals, like Yes and some of those bands. Um, so we tried to incorporate all of those different English styles of music in
Right.
our music, and I think we succeeded fairly well.
I think you guys did too. I mean, it's a common story back with bands in that era that, they were great and they fall through the cracks. And, it's the music industry, as you know, not a nice industry to be in, because most of the people in the music industry don't know what they're doing anyways. These people that oh, that's not going to be a hit, and it turns out to be a hit. They don't know what they're doing. They can't hear the music like the musicians can,
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you guys knew Explorer Suite and Don't Ever Want to Lose You they were gonna be good. You guys had that feeling, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
we were it wasn't like we were consciously writing songs that were going to be hit songs, and that's not to say that we didn't do that on our second album. That's the Explorer Suite album. I think it was the second album. There was a song called Conversation, and that song was specifically written to be a hit song. You
Hmm.
said let's write a 3 minute and 40 second song that's got like a really really cool hook that has all the ingredients of a hit song. Why? Because we can. You know, we're artists. We're painting a picture of a
Absolutely, absolutely.
and a song like Explorer Suite, which is 7.5 minutes long. No, that's not going to be a hit single. But something like Conversation, yeah, we need a song like that. Or another song was like Hello, Hello, Hello.
Yep.
On the first album was a potential hit single. So, when we put our minds to it, we could pretty much do whatever we needed to do to make sure that the album was going to resonate with as many people as possible. Unfortunately, the record companies let us down and didn't give us that opportunity. But what's funny? Here we are 40 years later, and there was a survey or a poll just came out of um, the greatest 50 rock and roll bands of our era, and New England was voted number 14. Now
Wow.
that's the greatest rock and roll bands in history, and we were number 14. Um, that kind of blew my mind when I saw it, and was extremely proud and very happy about the position that we got. But and there was a little blurb, and I think it was one of the magazines, maybe Hit Parader magazine or Circus magazine or one of those magazines put it out. But that's pretty cool. After all these years being recognized for just having 3 albums, to be recognized that we were one of those bands that people recognize as being a great rock and roll band. That certainly meant a lot to me.
We
That's cool.
I remember listening to KMET in Los Angeles, and one night Jim Ladd, rest his soul, he just passed away. The
Mm,
greatest DJ I've ever heard. He taught me how to listen to music. Yeah, I mean, you listen to him,
wow.
he taught you how to listen to music. It's just not the da 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 da. Listen to the whole song, pick out parts that you like. And he played you guys for the first time. He played Explorer Suite, and I went, whoa. The first time I heard it, I went, man, this is really good. So I went out and bought the album. And you can give him credit for turning one guy on to you guys, but he had that way about him. He would make you. He would pull. He'd play Rush, and it wouldn't be Spirit of Radio. He'd play something totally different, like YYZ or something that most people have never heard, and you go, "That's really good."
Yeah.
Because as you know, most people like, well, not only play the hits. Okay, that's great, but you're missing the point. You're missing the whole album. Yeah, there's going to be
Yeah.
something you don't care for, but there's going to be songs on there you like, you know?
Well,
And
nowadays it's completely different. The DJs don't have any say at all. It's just basically, pre-programmed. You're playing this, and you're playing that. So that's unfortunately the DJs back in the day. In Boston, we had people like Mark Parento, Ken Shelton, people like that were picking songs off our albums to play for the public because they believed in them. And those unfortunately those days are gone.
yeah,
Um, so I kind of have to be my own DJ, and I'll just go on YouTube and look for European rock bands, because those are the guys that I like. And then I'll start listening to a lot of the bands that are coming out of Europe that are still doing the style of music that I love. And that's I urge all of your listeners, just jump on YouTube and go listen to Pretty Maids, go listen to Ronnie Atkins, go listen to YET. So there's a bunch of bands out there that are just amazing bands.
it's the to me, it's band. It's the musicianship in a band that brings me into them. Obviously the songs, but some of these bands like Boston, when they first came out, they were tight. I've seen them several times on tour. And then you get the bands that are like going through the motions, like I mentioned, Foreigner.
Yep.
It's it, you
Yeah,
know
it's good.
it's you're disappointing to your audience. You know, um, it's like they're just half-ass doing it. It's like, why are you even out on tour? People want to
Yeah,
see you, moving around, and they want to see Hirsch boogieing back there on the drums.
right, right.
You know, it's I still harken back to the old days because that's what I miss. It'll never change. I think back to the gigs I went to and the friends I've met and the illegal drugs we used to do, but that's another story.
That is another story.
Yeah, because the musicians had all the good shit. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we won't go there.
Yeah, no, 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 no. We don't want the cops knocking on our doors, but let's just say we had fun.
We
Okay.
did, we did.
There was nights I'm sure you don't remember and I don't remember, and I don't know if I
That's true.
remember them. What was
Yeah.
what was your favorite gig you ever played with opening act or whatever? What was the one you thought, wow, this is the best we've ever been?
Wow. So many great gigs. I mean, uh, Tokyo, Japan, playing at Club Cheetah. We flew over after doing our gig in LA. This was more recent. I think it was just probably 3 or 4 years ago. Um, so we got in Japan, and as I was walking down the street, um, people were recognizing who I was. And people were coming up to me on the street with New England albums, actual vinyl, and asking for my autograph. And it kind of like blew my mind. It's like, holy crap, man! I'm like, 6,000 miles from 9,000 miles from home, and these kids know who I am. They know my music. They've got my albums. So we played 2 nights. We played Friday night and Sunday night at Club Cheetah, and each night there was a meet and greet. Well, the show was an hour and a half, but the meet and greets ended up being about 2.5 hours. Every single person in the audience, like 2,000 people, they wanted to come and meet the band. And I remember this one kid. I actually have this here. I'm gonna jump out of the screen for a second. I'll
Sure.
be right back.
We're talking with Hirsch Gardner here. He's getting something. He'll be right back. I hope you're enjoying this little musical journey here. We're all musician fans.
So thanks for giving me the moment. But
No
so
problem.
anyway, we got this long line of kids that wanted to meet the band, and so Jimmy and Gary and John and I were sitting at this table, and this one kid comes up to me, and he was, as the Japanese are, so polite, and he's, oh, Masa Hirsch, Masa Hirsch. He gives me this, and it might be backwards, but he gives me this note, and on the inside, he wrote me a letter in Japanese, and here it is here.
Wow.
And um, well, obviously I've saved this and I put it on my memorabilia shelf here. But so I had one of the translators read the letter to me, and basically the letter said that he's been a fan of New England's, and I was his favorite guy in the band. he yeah, he was, I think he said he was a drummer, and he's been a fan of mine for 30 years,
Wow.
and it was his lifelong ambition to get to meet me and speak to me. So I mean, I was actually brought to tears. I mean, he was just it was mind blowing that this kid you know handed me this note, this personal note with the lettering. So that's got to be one of the highlights of the career is, when you've got fans that are that dedicated, that know who you are, that are 6,000, 9,000 miles away. That made a huge impact on me. It's just like, wow, if I've affected that kid and have affected, many others with my music, yeah, I guess I did a good thing.
You
That's
did a good thing. Absolutely.
so
It's the little things that really bring a smile to your face, like that
yeah,
you just mentioned the kid in Japan. That's so gratifying. Like, wow, I affected somebody. They love my music. That's got to make your, beat your chest a little faster, you know.
yeah. Well, and then there was the other situation where we were opening for Kiss and at Madison Square Garden in New York. And so we played our set and crowd loved us. And, we were probably one of the only bands that that got standing ovations and encores when we played with Kiss. And of course, Kiss let us do it because, of our relationship with Paul Stanley and Bill Aucoin. So I'm up on the side of the stage watching Kiss play, and I'm on the same side of the stage as Gene Simmons. Of course, Gene Simmons, he went out with some very, very beautiful, well-known women at that point. So I'm standing there on the side of the stage, right? And about 5 feet away from me, there's this like really beautiful woman with long, long black hair down to her butt. It's like, I'm sitting there, I was like watching the band, and then I'm watching her, and then I'm watching the band, I'm watching her. So I walk up to her in between one of the songs, and I said, hey, girl, how you doing? You enjoying the show? She turns around, looks at me, and scowls. It was Cher. She was going
Oh
out.
my God.
So she just blew me. She just blew me right off, and I was like, "Hey, get away from me!"
Oh God.
Of course, I didn't tell Gene, but maybe she did. I don't know.
Hey,
So
you're a drummer, man. Come on. Everybody
yeah,
loves drummers. You guys are different cats. Drummers are some of my favorite people because they have the stories. Some go to the extreme, like Keith Moon. He was a little over the top, and it wasn't shocking that he died, but
yeah.
but he had the fills that were just mind blowing. He just
Oh, Keith was an animal.
he was great.
Yep.
And fills are an important part of the song to me, anyways, as a drummer. And it gives you a little bite to the song. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I like that. I really, really like that. So are you planning to tour or go out with John at all, and promote the single, or what are you guys going to do?
Well, what I'm doing right now is I've just finished my third solo album. The first album was Wasteland for Broken Hearts, and then my second solo album was My Brain Needs a Holiday. And so now I'm working on my third album, and the working title on this one is Third Time's a Charm.
I like that.
And yeah, so it's signed to Deco Records. I think I mentioned that earlier. Great label. You should all look them up. And they just announced my signing last week. And the album hopefully will be out in September or October. And the great thing about this album, at least I thought it was a great thing, I have 6 originals on the album, some which are co-written with some other musicians that I know and love and respect and love to work with. And then I also have 6 New England songs that I've covered, which include Don't Ever Want to Lose You, Hello, Hello, Hello. There's what else do I have on there? Oh, there's tons of songs on there. So anyway, all the New England songs that I covered, one of which includes all 4 members of the band.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I did that was because several years ago, Jimmy Waldo and I were in the studio, and I said to the guys in the band, I said, listen, why don't we record a cover of our own song? And so Jimmy and I recorded the drum tracks, and he recorded all his keyboard tracks. And then just, time moved on, and we just didn't get a chance to get together as a band because, like I said, we were all living separately all over the place. So I still had those original tracks. Now, I've never, ever heard a really great version of Don't Ever Want to Lose You. Many bands have covered that song. And I said to the guys in the band back then, I said, man, there's never been a great version of that song. Why don't we do it? So for this album, I had set out to plan to do 6 New England songs and make them the best versions that people have ever heard since the band came out. And so those 6 songs are going to be on the new album. And believe me, I've played them for a couple of New England fans, and they've already flipped out. It's going to be a great album. It's going to be something that is going to be, a retrospective. Everybody's doing tributes now, so this is my tribute to my band.
I think it's great.
And it's going to be wonderful. It's good that the songs turned out great. I've got some amazing players. Nothing to Fear is one of the songs that's on the album, which was on our first New England album. And guess who I've got playing guitar on that? Ron Bumblefoot Thal.
Oh God.
Is playing all the guitars on that song, and he just killed it. Ron and I have been friends for several years. I met him in New York, and he came up to me and he says, "You're Hirsch Gardner from New England." I said, "Yeah," and I sort of recognized him. Didn't know who he was at that point. He says, "Yeah," he says, "My name's Bumblefoot. I play for Guns N' Roses." It's like, "Oh man, it's great to meet you." He says, "Man, I'm a huge fan of yours." So I had him actually playing on my second solo album. He played one of the songs on that album, and I called him up on this one, and I said, "Hey, Ron," he's like, "Nobody knows New England songs better than you." He's a Like I said, he's a huge fan. He said, "Hershey, I'd be honored." So I sent him the basic tracks, and he sent me like 3 days later. He sends me back like 30 guitar tracks, and they were all
Jesus.
just amazing. I was actually when I auditioned the songs, when I listened to them, I was actually laughing my ass off because they were so good. Ron is just like the most incredible guitar player. So that's on there. And like I've got Chris Laney from Pretty Maids. He's playing on several of the New England songs, and he's also my co-producer.
Great.
Um, Bob St. John, who is the engineer, producer, and mixer for Extreme. Bob and I go way, way back. He's a local Boston boy. He's mixing a couple of the songs on the album. So this album is going to be a real treat. It's quite different than the other albums I put out. I think it's a lot harder edged, a lot more rock and roll, and really looking forward to it coming out. So all the New England fans that are out there, check this album out. It's going to be pretty cool.
Well, I want to have you back when the album comes out. Okay, and you get to meet
Absolutely.
Dale and Jimmy because Dale was a former DJ before he became an umpire, and these guys are hilarious. They are funny, and they will
That's
ask you
great.
questions. You know, it's like this. It's just guys shooting the shit. Um, and you know, we've got a lot of great people coming on the podcast coming up, but yeah, I'd love to have you back and talk to the guys too because you know, you're a wealth of information. You're easy to talk to. I mean, you make my job easy. And I like that. You know, we're not pulling answers out of somebody like yes, no.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
Oh
That's
yeah,
kind of
I
tough.
know. It's like nails on the chalkboard. You're like, oh, hurry up, get the interview over. But
Right.
you know,
Right.
yeah, I think it's great that you're still playing, and definitely want to have you back again soon. I know you got a bunch of stuff to do, and let's talk about coming on in October when your album is out. I want to get the album and hear it. I'm really looking forward to that. So,
Bob, my pleasure, man. It'd be great to come back, and thanks for the opportunity to talk, man. Sorry
oh,
I slept through the first one.
a musician sleeping through something. No,
No, that never
I get
happens,
it.
right?
Yeah, no, that never happens. Trust me, buddy. I know all about that. So he's Hirsch Gardner, the drummer from New England. We will have him back again soon. Thank you, Hirsch, for coming on. We really enjoyed this. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bob. I'll see you soon.
Remember, everybody, take the road to the left. You'll never know what you'll find. See you next time. Bye-bye.